Welcome back to our channel. As always, we're here to help you navigate the complex maze of personal finance. Today, we'll be plunging into the intriguing world of retirement plans. But before we dive into the journey of our friend Joe the plumber, we want to remind you to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Your support really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm and allows us to continue providing you with quality content. So if you're ready to learn more about 401ks, 403bs, Roths, and all the other alphabet soup of retirement plans, keep watching. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty, just like Joe. Let's get started. Once upon a time, in a land filled with wrenches and pipes, lived Joe the plumber. A humble man of humble beginnings, Joe had always been a hard worker. He knew the importance of a good day's work, but he also knew that one day, his strength might not be what it used to be. And so, from the tender age of 20, he began to put away a little bit of his hard-earned money into a retirement savings account. Now, Joe wasn't a financial whiz by any stretch. He could fix a leaky pipe in his sleep, but when it came to finances, well, let's just say he was all thumbs. He'd heard about these things called a 401k, a 403b, and a Roth. But to him, they might as well have been different types of pipe fittings. All he knew was that he needed to save for his future. So each month, Joe would put a portion of his paycheck into this account. He watched as his savings grew, bit by bit, year by year. He felt a sense of pride and security knowing that he was building a nest egg for his golden years. Yet, there was a nagging feeling at the back of his mind. He'd heard stories from his fellow plumbers, tales of people who had saved all their lives only to find out they hadn't saved enough. He didn't want that to be his story. He wanted to ensure that when the time came for him to hang up his wrench, he'd have enough to live comfortably. But how could he be sure? He was saving, sure. But was it enough? Was he doing it right? The world of retirement planning seemed as complex and confusing as a maze of pipes to a novice plumber. It was a world filled with terms and jargon that felt as foreign as a language he didn't speak. Little did Joe know, his lack of knowledge about the different retirement plans was about to change. One day, while Joe was tightening a pipe, he overheard a conversation about 401k and 403b. He was stumped. He thought, are these new plumbing codes I missed? Now, Joe, like many of us, was an expert in his field. He could unclog a drain faster than a speeding bullet and fix a leaky faucet with his eyes closed. But when it came to the world of retirement plans, well, he found himself in a bit of a pickle. So he did what any self-respecting plumber would do. He took out his trusty wrench, metaphorically speaking, and decided to tighten his understanding of these so-called retirement plans. First up, the 401k. Now, Joe initially thought this was some kind of fancy new pipe size. But as it turns out, a 401k is a retirement savings plan offered by employers. It's like a storage tank for your retirement funds. You put in a portion of your paycheck, and your employer usually matches a part of your contribution. The money you put in is pre-tax, meaning you don't pay taxes on it until you withdraw it during retirement. Next, the 403b. Joe's first thought was, well, that's got to be a bigger pipe, right? Nope. A 403b is a similar kind of retirement savings plan, but it's typically offered by nonprofit organizations like schools and hospitals. It's like a different brand of pipe, but it does the same job as the 401k. Now here's where it gets a bit tricky. Just like different pipes have different uses, these retirement plans have different benefits and drawbacks. For instance, with a 401k, you might have a wider variety of investment options than a 403b. But with a 403b, you might get to make additional catch-up contributions if you're over 50. Joe, now aware of the different retirement plans, was even more confused than before. But don't worry, folks. Just like Joe, we'll get through this confusing world of retirement plans together. All it takes is a bit of patience, a touch of humor, and a trusty wrench of knowledge. 401k, 403b, Roth. It sounds like a weird game of bingo, Joe thought. But let me assure you, these aren't random numbers or some secret code. They are, in fact, 3 popular types of retirement savings plans in the United States, each one as unique as the pipes Joe the plumber deals with every day. Now let's start with the 401k. Picture this as your standard garden variety pipe. It's functional and gets the job done. A 401k is a retirement savings plan sponsored by an employer. It lets workers save and invest a piece of their paycheck before taxes are taken out. Taxes aren't paid until the money is withdrawn from the account. Much like how Joe wouldn't see the result of his pipe laying until the water flows. The benefits of a 401k are most evident upon retirement. Next up, we have the 403B. This one's a bit more specialized, like those copper pipes Joe uses for specific jobs. The 403B is similar to the 401K in many ways, but it's designed for certain employees of public schools, tax-exempt organizations, and certain ministers. You could say it's a bit exclusive, like those high-end pipes that only certain homes use. Last, but certainly not least, we have the Roth. Now, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill pipe. It's more like the shiny stainless steel pipe that Joe might use for a fancy remodel. A Roth is a special retirement account where you pay taxes on money going into your account, and then all future withdrawals are tax-free. It's like paying for your piping up front, and then never having to worry about it again. The Roth can be a great option if you expect your tax rate to be higher during retirement than your current rate. Now you might be thinking, why all these different plans? Can't there be a one-size-fits-all? Well, just like Joe wouldn't use the same pipe for every job, not every retirement plan suits everyone. Each plan has its unique features and benefits, much like how each pipe has its own specific use. The 401K might be the go-to for many, but the 403B offers similar benefits for a more specific group of people. And the Roth? Well, it's a bit of a gamble, but if you play your cards right, it could lead to tax-free income in retirement. It's like choosing between PVC, copper, or stainless steel pipes. Each has its advantages and disadvantages, and the right choice depends on the job at hand. Joe was starting to understand the differences, but he still had one question. Which one is best for me? Well, that's a question only you can answer, Joe. The best retirement plan for you depends on your individual circumstances and goals, just like the best pipe for the job depends on the specifics of the project. So, choose wisely. And remember, the goal is to make sure the water flows smoothly when you turn on the tap in your golden years. Joe, with newfound knowledge, started to analyze his options. It was like choosing between a wrench, a pipe cutter, and a plunger. Each tool has its purpose, just as each retirement plan has its benefits. Our friend Joe, being the methodical plumber he is, decided to take a closer look at his plan options. He started with the 401K. He liked the idea of employer matching contributions. That's like getting a free pipe wrench with every toolbox purchase. However, he wasn't too thrilled about the potential taxes waiting for him in retirement, like a clogged pipe waiting to burst. Next, he considered the 403B plan. As a plumber, he didn't directly qualify, but he thought about it anyway. It's always good to know all the tools in the shed, right? The 403B seemed pretty similar to the 401K, but it had a special catch for those in public service or non-profit jobs. It was like a wrench with an added flashlight. Handy, but not necessarily for him. Lastly, he considered the Roth. He liked the idea of paying taxes up front, getting it out of the way. It's like dealing with a small leak now instead of waiting for a flood later. However, he knew that the benefit would depend on his tax bracket in retirement, a future that was as unpredictable as a rusty pipe. So, Joe pondered, scratched his head, and maybe even talked to his rubber ducky a bit. He considered his current financial situation, his future income prospects, and his retirement goals. He thought about his love for unclogging pipes and his dream of fishing in the quiet countryside. After much deliberation, he made his decision. He chose the retirement plan that best fit his needs, much like choosing the right tool for a plumbing job. He knew that it wasn't set in stone. Like a leaky faucet, his plan could be tweaked and adjusted as needed. Joe finally made his decision, feeling more confident about his retirement plan. Now Joe can laugh at his initial confusion about retirement plans. You see, after all this, Joe realized that understanding these plans is like being a plumber. Initially, it all seems like a tangled mess of pipes, with money flowing in all directions. But once you get the hang of it, you know exactly where the money is going. Just imagine Joe standing there, wrench in hand, staring down a bunch of convoluted pipes. That's your 401K, your 403B, and your Roth. It might seem like a jumbled mess, but with a little bit of elbow grease and a good plumber's manual, or a helpful financial advisor, you can make sure everything is flowing in the right direction. In the end, Joe's retirement plans were no more complex than a double sink installation. And just like that, Joe learned that understanding your retirement plan is no harder than unclogging a stubborn pipe. So folks, don't let your retirement savings go down the drain.